Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Stay in your lane.
Welcome to the Mind Your Own podcast with Erin Sorensen and Sausha Durkin, where we stick to sports, except when we're not.
Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Own podcast. It's the first episode of the new year. I'm Erin.
I'm Sausha.
And hello.
Yeah. It's weird because it's like, I don't know. I feel like every other new year has felt like an actual like new year. Mm-hmm. But this one is just like another,
New year, same us.
Yeah.
Well, I actually really, I don't personally like the whole new year, new me type of mentality anyway, because I hope that you don't feel like you have to change everything about yourself. If you do, by all means, work toward being a better version.
Yeah.
I guess I don't like the new year, new me, because it's implying that something was bad about you originally.
Right.
But it's okay. Now, I will say, if you're listening to this and you think like, well, you sound a little bit muffled, I think we sound all right.
Yeah.
This is the same part of 2020. We are currently wearing masks as we record this. So, certain words are going to sound a little muffled. And if that's the case, I apologize. But, we both are just at this moment choosing to do this. And, that is the one carryover from 2020 is that we woke up on January 1st and COVID is not gone. It is still very present.
Yeah, it is. So full disclosure, the reason that we are going to marry masks. Wearing masks is just out of an abundance of caution. I have not gone out to eat since March of 2020. I allowed myself to be talked into and made the decision to go out to eat, and I've been like freaking out about it ever since, I guess. I wore my mask the whole time. We were 6 feet apart from other people, but I still, I would just rather be cautious.
Yeah, that's how I felt, honestly, after the first game I covered in person, because even though I was, I wore my mask, I would say, 98% of the time, only time it came off is if I was drinking something or if I was eating my lunch. But I also can't control everyone else that I'm around. So while I felt I had done everything I could, there's only so much you can do. So, may this be a lesson that if you are in a situation that you just feel like you'd be more comfortable either wearing your mask is not a big deal.
No.
I'm actually to the point now where I went out to shovel the other day and was like, I kind of almost would rather wear my mask while shoveling because it keeps my face warm.
Right.
But also I just don't really have an issue any longer. It's so second nature. And I've really not understood sort of the continuous pushback by some people to mask wearing. Now, I think we're all in agreement. It's not fun.
Right.
It's not like I enjoy it, but I don't understand when we're 10 months into a pandemic and the conversation we're still having is, whether or not masks are useful.
Right.
And the thing that I hope when I look at 2021, and I think, so we won't spend a ton of time on this, but we said in our last episode of 2020 that the first episode, we really wanted to talk about not so much resolutions, but intentions, what we really wanted to see from 2021. And something that, personally, I hope to continue helping other people understand while I continue to understand is we are literally watching science in motion. Mm-hmm. So when people use the fact that at the beginning of the pandemic, they said masks are not necessary, they were doing that for two reasons. One, because it was a lack of understanding around the virus itself.
Right.
And then two, they wanted to ensure that, frontline workers, healthcare provider workers had access to the masks that they needed. We have an abundance of masks now. You can go on Old Navy right now and buy a pack of 10 for $5. It's not, we are not in a point where you can't have them. And we watch science literally learn, oh, wait, actually, this does not spread as quickly if people are just wearing a mask.
Right.
So I hope at least as we look forward into 2021, especially with science, when science originally says, hey, maybe this is how we do something, and then a month or two later says, actually, now that we've had time to research and process this, it's actually better to do this.
Yes.
I hope that we can at least like take a step back, and instead of like just like digging our nails into the original thing, go, it's okay for something to evolve and to change. And honestly, it's kind of cool that we are literally getting to watch science evolve and learn alongside of us, because we don't normally ever get to see this side of it.
Right.
So
usually it's like, I don't want to say like behind closed doors, but a lot of that research happens not in the public eye, you know? Actually, one of the things that, and I was thinking about this a lot this morning when I knew that that would be the topic of this episode. One of my intentions for 2021 is to continue to be cautious. I understand that there are things that are uncomfortable or we don't find joy in doing, but for the protection of other people, they're necessary. And I think that it is selfless of us to continue to do the things that we have the guidance for. And yeah, that's just, especially after this weekend, I'm like really reflecting on that hard. I know I just feel guilty. I don't know why I do. But
if you're somebody, I would say, and you know, this is when we've talked about, and we talked about this a little bit in our last episode, that like not everyone who listens to this podcast is necessarily going to agree with everything that we say. However, something that I had a conversation with a few times over the last couple of weeks since we recorded that with different individuals is why certain topics have become so polarizing and why certain topics have become so politicized. And to be honest with you, I really just do not understand how this, I understand how the pandemic became politicized, but I don't understand why. And I feel that way with a lot of topics. I actually think for a lot of us, our end goal is the same. I'd say with this pandemic, all of us want to get back to normal. We all want to get back to the lives that we knew. I would say we, for the most part, enjoyed. But our path to getting there is what's different.
yeah,
And the problem is we have allowed politicians on both sides of the aisle to sort of direct where we are going with this in a way that like now it's become a thing where if I say I want to wear my mask because I think it's beneficial to others, it's showing empathy, it's showing understanding, it's showing care, then somebody out there is immediately going to come at me and go, what are you saying? Are you saying I don't care about people? Are you saying I don't care? I care about people. And it's like, well, I mean, kind of. I from my perspective, yes, I do think that you're not being empathetic. But, like, why was that the trigger point? Like, why are we so triggered now by, and I use that word, by the way, because I also feel like words have become really bizarre.
Yes, agreed.
Over the things like snowflake and trigger. And I just think in 2021, and I want to be better about this. I think in 2020, something that I tended to do is retreat from hard conversations because it was like, look, I just don't want to get into this. Like, it's, for my own mental health, I was like, I just can't do this. Now, I'm not going to go out and seek the opportunity to like argue with people. But I think in 2021, one intention I'd like to do is to have for myself is just to have a little bit more, I don't know, strength to say, because I think we do this thing where we want to say like, well, I respect your opinion, but sometimes it's like, I wouldn't encourage you to go out into the world and, you know, I'm going to encourage you to wear a seatbelt because I think wearing a seatbelt's a good thing.
Right.
So I don't know. I think, and I'm not doing a very good job explaining it, but I think in 2021, I just want to have a little bit more strength to stand up for my beliefs a little bit more in a way that I never want to make people feel they're not welcome to the table, to the conversation.
Yes. But
I will say, if you're going to start the conversation with me from a point of like, I've already closed that door and like, you're wrong, then like, we're not going to get there. And that's not what I'm talking about. But if you're somebody who's willing to come to me and say, you know, this is where I'm at, I'd like to at least talk to you. I'd like to have that conversation because I think this year I tended to shut down any conversation because it was like, I just can't handle it.
I did the same thing. And I think like reflecting back on the times where I really wanted to say something and I chose not to, it was because I think I didn't feel like I had the mental fortitude to continue to back up what I thought and believed about a certain situation and my why, because 2020 was so exhausting. And I didn't take the time to find or muster up the mental fortitude in order to do those things and have those conversations. I really legitimately stopped checking Twitter. I'd go on to be like, hey, I did this cool thing and, self-promotion, whatever. But that was about it. I live tweeted along with one game, which I hadn't done in a while. And it was kind of fun. But I didn't have the strength or want to have those conversations. Most of the time. I should say.
I'd say like the one nice thing about this podcast, and I did listen to our last one, and we've said this a lot, but I have really appreciated the conversation that has come from this podcast. And I'm going to reference him again, our pal Bob.
Yeah.
The fact that he started his original email to us, and he has sent us a follow-up, which is just awesome. It was like made my day to see that.
Yeah.
But the fact that he started his original email by saying, like, I don't always agree with everything you're saying, but, like, I'm at least able to sort of, like, come at the conversation with trying to understand where you might be coming from. I was like, we all need to be more like that.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to preface, though, and this has nothing to do with Bob. So, Bob, this is separate from what you said. I just really loved what you said. I also think sometimes that can be weaponized against people where we go, well, you should have to listen to this thing. Sometimes like conspiracy theories, like absolutely, true fake news. Like as a journalist, like there is sincere fake news. And so when something has been debunked, you can't use that as a reason to tell someone you need to listen and understand this and stuff because it's like that's not true. Like it's not a thing. Like us debating this false topic is honestly not worth either of our time. So
exactly.
I also don't want you to think that I'm saying like in 2021, like you have to entertain that kind of conversation if it doesn't serve you. But I do think everyone across the board can do a better job of just trying to have those conversations. Because like I said, I don't understand.
I feel like the biggest changes for the better happen when people are forced to sit in that uncomfortableness. Like, how do you grow if you don't fail or feel uncomfortable at some point?
Well, like, I stumbled upon it. It's 2021. I still love TikTok.
Oh God, I'm obsessed now.
Yeah, I stumbled upon a TikTok last night, and I really, really loved what this woman said. So she was and I'm using her words. I want to be clear because I'm always big on like making sure that like proper pronouns, how people identify is correctly. She identified herself as a Black woman, so she was addressing white women, and she basically said, if you feel attacked by what I'm saying, what I'm about to say, you need to sit with that because I'm not attacking anyone. I'm telling you some things that I have noticed and that I think that like will help open up dialogue and conversation if we can get past these things. And she runs down this list, and I'll be honest, like I was uncomfortable in some of the things she said, not because I felt she was wrong, but because I was like, yeah. So like one thing she mentioned is that like, and I'm guilty of this, that white women tend to use our emotion against others because we know that people will tend to side. And this is all like internal. This is not like a thing that we're like actively choosing to do. But I know that about myself, that sometimes like I use my emotion because I feel like if somebody sees me upset, their reaction is going to be to comfort me and to tell me it's okay. The thing is like most of the people, like if I mess up, do not owe me that. It's me who needs to find a way to feel better versus me basically making them make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't owe me, like, a person that I offend, that person, they do not owe me the, like, let me make you feel better.
Right. Like, oh, no. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like, I do know that, like, when I get frustrated or I get overwhelmed or if I'm not understanding a situation, I do have a tendency to get emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something for me when I'm watching this video of her. I'm like, yes, I do that. I know that about myself, that I tend to take a situation, I'll get upset and I'll get emotional because at the core of it, people then feel bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'd like to work on in 2021. So, like, the whole point of this is, though, is as I was watching her video, the fact that she said at the beginning, like, if you feel attacked, you need to just sit with that because I am not attacking anyone. She's like,
I'm pointing things out.
I'm just pointing something out. I'm trying to have a conversation. And honestly, I watched her video a few times, and after like the second or third watch, I was like, this is really well done. Like, I appreciated her taking her time to put this together because she didn't need to, but she did. And I was like, I'm very fascinated by what she's sharing.
Yeah.
So I think that's something in this next year, I'm speaking for myself, but I think all of us can do is if we start to feel attacked by something, just sit with it for a moment. Because I think we're too quick to say things are being, like, we're being attacked, we're being bullied, we're being
well,
this.
Here's
like,
the thing, too, that I've found in my
matter.
own life. They do. They really do. But I've found in my own life, and I've started to pay more and more attention to this, that when I start to feel attacked, it's probably because I am doing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard sometimes when it's you who you live with and see, and like you're wearing this meat suit. I mean, it's you. You're a human being.
Right.
You're experiencing these things, and other people can't see inside your head and your thoughts and things like that. But sometimes the things that I get offended by, quote unquote, or like the type of person that I say I don't like, that person or that situation, that thing that's making me uncomfortable, I probably have some of the properties of that issue or thing. Mm-hmm. It took me like forever, and I still struggle with that. The difficult conversations, the ones that make me feel super uncomfortable, aren't necessarily always because of that reason. But I found more often than not, probably 75% of the time, it is because I am doing that thing or I possess that thing that I don't like. Mm-hmm. You know, like as a personality trait. It's hard to sit back and reflect on that stuff, and it's easier to react. And I think that I would like to continue to work on that within myself. Like, just when I'm uncomfortable, take a breath and like sit for 10, 15 seconds and think like, okay, what am I actually reacting to here? What is the thing that is upsetting to me? Why is it upsetting to me? And then if it's like bad enough and it's a light bulb moment, then I would like to start writing things down again. I used to do that all the time. It was a really therapeutic thing just to get out the things, you know, like, because your thoughts kind of move really rapidly in those situations sometimes, especially like for me. I used to be worse than I am now, but a very reactive person. There was actually an instance earlier this year within the wonderful company that I currently work for. I took something someone said super personally. It was constructive criticism, but I took it personally, like I wasn't good enough at that certain thing. And then I started talking about it out loud to a coworker, and I was like, wait, no, I am taking it personally. Because I was like, I'm not taking it personally, but da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to sit with that, because I was like, hold on, I am taking it super personally. Why am I taking it super personally? And it was like, because I didn't like constructive criticism about that one certain aspect. Like, when it was something that I could be better at. And so
I'm super bad at taking it. Like, so I'm glad that you said that, like, writing things down, because that's actually something for me in 2021. Being prominently a writer and a journalist, like, I do a lot of writing for other people and working in social media. I do a lot of brand building for other people, and I neglect myself a lot of the time. And I would say at the end of 2020, we were all exhausted. Like, to everyone everywhere, we were all exhausted. And so I, like, because of things like that, where like you have those feelings of like, why I need to process through this, or I have things I need to think about, or I need to really sit with why something that I have found is helpful for me is blogging. And not about it, like not always about like serious things, just anything, just anything to like have an opportunity to share what's on my mind, what's on my heart, whatever. That's why this podcast has honestly been so therapeutic. But the thing is in 2020, I wrote one blog post. It's like, what was the point of even having that blog?
Right.
Why did I pay for the like hosting of that blog? So I don't know what I'll do in 2021. I'm not going to like sit down and like set a goal of like I have to write this many times a month. Maybe I should, but I just want to write a little bit. Like I just want to utilize it more. I'd like to utilize that because I do think when we do things for ourselves, when we sit and reflect on our own thoughts, because I do think we sometimes like put so much into our work and so much into that like we neglect ourselves. So yeah, like to be honest, when you get feedback at work, I'm terrible at getting feedback at work because I do take everything personal because I associate my job to me. So when someone says like, oh, you could be doing this, I immediately am like,
does that mean I'm not doing it good enough?
Yeah, you're coming at me. You're saying that like I'm not good enough. And it's like your work is not you.
Right.
You are not defined by your job. Yes, you can do things better, differently, whatever. But yeah, it's something that's hard.
It is really hard. Well, and especially like in this instance, this is going to sound dumb when I say it out loud, but this is how it was. It was something that I knew that I could work on and get better at. But I had convinced myself that I was good enough at it, that when someone said, hey, I just have a couple of suggestions for this, I then took it super personally because I had convinced myself that I was okay enough at it. It sounds dumb even now when I say it out loud, but that's how simple it was.
It's not at all. I totally understand where you're coming from because I'm somebody that like I do not enjoy like reviews. Not because I need to be praised all the time. Like, to be honest, like, this is what's really weird about the way my mind works. I also am not comfortable with, like, too much praise. Like, I am not comfortable with people telling me I'm doing a good job.
I deflect.
Yes, I'm always just like, oh, thank you so much. It's actually because of this. Like, I'm so really
it's we.
Yeah, I'm, like, really good at, like, passing, like, compliments on to other people and not doing so good myself. Reviews are really hard for me because I walk into that and, like, any compliment, any praise I get, I'm deflecting it. Any criticism I get, I'm just it's like Velcro to me. I'm just like, oh, this is stuck here now. I can't get rid of it. That is just a personal thing I know about myself. I overthink reviews to the end of the earth because I'm like, could I have done better? Should I have done better? And it's like,
what about this?
Yeah, it sucks. And I know we're not the only ones who are like that. I know a lot of you are like that. And honestly, again, going back to TikTok, there's this one TikTok account I really like where this guy, he basically, he's like emulating millennials and like how we all have like terrible anxiety and we're always worried that we're going to get fired and that our bosses hate us and like all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so true. Like, I don't know how many of my friends as millennials, which also something in 2021, I'd like to just like, this has nothing to do with anything else, but like in 2021, can we stop assuming millennials are like 18 years old?
I am 36 years old and I'm an old one.
The oldest millennial just turned 40 this year. I need you to understand, like, millennials are not children. Like, we are literally, like, anxiety.
We are maladapted adults.
We are anxiety-ridden adults who are just trying so hard to please our parents and not be completely big losers to the generation behind us. Like, I saw a TikTok that was so true. It was, like, all these different generations in a restaurant, and it's, like, boomers get the wrong order and they're like pitching a fit. Like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I ordered. I want you to take it back, make it for me again, and then comp my meal. And then is it Gen X that's after boomers?
I think so, yeah.
So then they're kind of like the in-between. Millennials, we're the ones that are like, I am so sorry. I apologize. That's whatever I did that got this wrong. So I understand. I told you this is what I wanted, but you still, for whatever reason, I apologize.
I'm going to eat it anyway. I just wanted to let you know.
I'm going to eat this. In fact, I'll pay you more for it. I'll tip you more. Like, millennials are constantly like worried about everything. We are a generation of anxiety. But please, in this new year, please stop assuming. The reason I say this, Actually, in the last couple of weeks, I had, of all places, somebody left a YouTube comment about me. And I think they were trying to compliment me, but I also think that they were trying to insult me. Like, I think it was like a little bit of both. Like,
Backhanded compliment.
Yeah, it was kind of like, hey, you suck, but also, nice interview.
Yeah. Right.
But they called me, they basically said, I have no memory of any Nebraska national championships. So, like, covering this team, like, I don't know what greatness is. I was alive for 3.
Right.
And have active memories, which, by the way, and a person on Twitter, and they did apologize. They were like, I wasn't trying to attack you. And I was like, I know, but I need you to understand why I got a little bit upset at this comment. Because they were like, well, how many do you even remember? It's like, but also, why does my age have anything to do with this?
Right, exactly, yeah.
I do appreciate all of you who think I'm like 23, because it means the like really poor skincare job I've done in the last couple of years has apparently paid off.
Same. I just finally started using lotion on my face, and I'm 36.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong side of 35.
I'm 33, and you all actively think I'm like 10 years younger than I am, which thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will credit my parents. Both of them look phenomenal for their ages. So, like, none of this is like my doing. Thank you, genetics. But I don't like when we use age as an insult, and I still think that people do that to millennials, or was like, oh, those millennials, they're always on their TikToks and doing stuff, and I'm like, I'm 33, like, excuse me. If I want to be on TikTok, that's okay, because I've spent all day working my butt off for my job. Let me live my life.
Exactly.
So in this new year, let's stop going after people for their age. You can be a lot of things. No matter where you fall in the age, like,
spectrum.
It doesn't matter.
I think another thing, like, too, that I would like to work on or strive for is to listen a little more. I can be an impatient person, and sometimes when I'm one of those people, when things are like emotional or get to be too much, I completely shut down, and I'll be like, sorry that's happening. I will talk to you later when you're good. And I'd like to force myself to sit. I know this kind of like is jumping off of what we just talked about, but I would like to sit more with that uncomfortableness and just listen a little bit more. And it's not even a personal thing, and it's nothing against anybody else. It's just one of those things that makes me uncomfortable, because I automatically I can't do anything 9 times out of 10. But what I can do is listen. That would be a 10 out of 10. I can't take away what's going on, and I probably can't fix it, and I can't make it better. And I don't have to offer advice. I can just listen. And I would like to be a little bit better at sitting in that uncomfortableness sometimes and just listening and being a better listener and friend in that way, and spouse for that matter.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because I was actually a part of that TikTok that I watched of that woman who was sharing things that, like, white women listen to this. And this is one that I really actively want to work on. Not everything, when you listen, not everything requires a anecdote of how you've also experienced something. We have a really bad habit, and I use we, I mean sincerely. All of us have done this. Like, everyone who's listening to this, I promise you, if you sit and think about it, you've done this too, because I know I have a lot. Where somebody says, this really terrible thing happened to me, and you want to feel empathetic. You want that person to know I'm with you. I'm going to tell you something. A lot of the times, all you have to say is, I hear you. That sucks. I'm sorry. That's shit. Like, that's really all. And then later, maybe you can come chime in with that, like, let me tell you about this thing that happened to me.
Right.
We have a really bad habit of, person tells you, hey, this really terrible thing happened to me. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I so understand what you're talking about.
Here's
last
why.
year, this thing also happened to me. You have now centered the conversation around you. And this person is now going, like, that's great. I'm glad that, like, we both understand what we are going through together. But
that's not what I was talking to.
That's not what I was trying to, like, I was just trying to tell you something. So I can at least say for myself, I need to do a better job of just listening without feeling the need, because I am an empathetic
I don't
person.
have to, like, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I don't have to connect with you by sharing a story.
Right.
And regardless of how similar it is.
And I've done my Gallup strengths. One of my strengths is empathy. So like I am constantly like I'm an incredibly empathetic person to a fault, to a point that it's sometimes like crippling. Like where I'm like overly, like right now the TikTok algorithm has for some reason put me down a path of people who are having to put their animals down. This is very, very hard for me, because like I'm like immediately cannot get past the fact that like I want to like hug these people, and like I think about them for a while. Like it's like I'm taking everything on from this person I've never met, will probably never meet, all because I watched a 15-second video. But what I need to stop doing is then feeling like I need to like share something with that person. So like if somebody tells me, I can just say that sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry, without also then needing to tell them like, here's why I understand. Because empathy is just like, honestly, empathy is acknowledging you have been there. You really understand. You're in their shoes. But empathy does not require you to also make sure they know it right in that moment.
What's hard for me in those moments, like if I have been through something similar, is not, instead of like just leaving it at, I totally understand that that sounds like that's something that you needed to do for yourself type of thing, and just ending it there. Instead of being like, you know, like you just said, like, and here's why. I get uncomfortable sometimes, even like I feel like I'm being cold if I don't share why I understand that, and I just leave it at, I totally understand. That sucks. Good for you for doing what you needed to do, or I'm here for you if you need to continue to talk or whatever. Leaving it at that sometimes makes me feel super cold, like I'm not being emotional enough. It's such a weird, I don't know why my brain works this way, but it's something I want to work on.
We all have our needless to say, we all have our things.
Yeah.
Because and maybe this is it in 2021, because I did want to say, like, this podcast has mostly been non-sports related. So I'm sorry if you came looking for like our like 2021 football projections. I don't have them yet. But one thing, when I think about sports now, 2021 is going to look weird. Like volleyball is playing a schedule in the spring. Baseball is going to look weird. We know wrestling and gymnastics have like different kind of schedules this year as well. Things are going to be weird. I assume we will still have things like a College World Series. I assume that there will be fans in the stand by fall, because if we can ever figure out how to get this vaccine out and people actually are willing to take it, which, get your dang vaccines when they're available to you, there will be fans in the stands.
Yeah.
Actually, I have thought about that. One way you could probably get more people to get the vaccine is to be like, do you want to sit in the stands with 90,000 of your closest friends?
Show us your vaccination card.
You have to have a vaccination card. People would probably do it. Whatever it takes. But one thing I would like to do this year and forward. So every year in January, I don't really set resolutions. I'm not a big resolutions person, but I set like intentions. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start going more regularly to the gym or working out. I'm going to do things for myself. That's going to be reading more books, maybe blogging. Like, I always set these intentions, and they go really, really well until about July. And football starts. Life gets busy. I kind of just stop finding time for things. It's usually books are the first things that go. I stop reading. And then it's like slowly I stop working out. By the time I'm in the thick of football season, I'm just eating terribly and just not sleeping well. Now, some of the sleep schedule you can only control so much. If there's a 7 p.m. kickoff, like there's not much you can do. You're going to be up late. It is what it is. But you can balance that. But oftentimes what I do is I just run myself into the ground from about the end of July until December 31st. I wake up on January 1st, and I'm like, I feel disgusting. I feel terrible. I don't feel like myself. I commit myself to reading books, blogging, working out, eating well, and it's a cycle every single year. If 2020 did anything for me, which obviously this year has just given me more time, But it has shown me that I have to find time for myself. I would like to do that even during football season when life gets completely off the rails, traveling, which a lot of this probably won't look fully normal in 2021.
Right.
But some of it will look more normal. I just want to take better care of myself all year round, because I'm tired of the cycle that I'm in right now where like I just trash my body and my mind for 5 months, and then I'm good to myself for 7, and then I just trash my mind and body for 5 months, because it has nothing to do with how skinny I am. It has nothing to do with it really doesn't have anything to do with physical appearance. It's just more or less like I feel terrible all the time. Like if you look at any of my Instagram posts and you look at a year, you might look at like the back half of my year when like I'm doing things, traveling, and be like, wow, her life is so fun. That looks amazing. She's at the ESPN College Football Awards and she's standing right next to Ryan Day and Nick Saban. Like that's pretty dang cool.
Right.
I am probably in the worst mental state of my year at that point. I'm not even like fully like understanding, because I'm just like trashed at that point. Like I need to not be that way any longer. And so in 2021, I want to keep my consistency going. So in 2020, I found Peloton.
Yes.
I love Peloton. Like, I understand, like, some people say it's a cult. I don't care. You know what? If it is a cult, it's a cult that's, like, not harming anyone. It's not harming me. It's not harming you. No, it is one of those things where it's like, I'm obsessed with it, but it's an obsession that is hurting no one.
Exactly.
But I think the thing that I found with Peloton is the consistency of every week does not have to look the same, but every week includes things. Like, every week... And I love that about the instructors. They're like, look, if you only have 15 minutes today, you only have 15 minutes today. So let's make the most of those 15 minutes. Maybe you have an hour tomorrow. Maybe you don't have an hour at all this week. But like, let's find time for you where it works in your schedule.
Yep.
And
anything is better than nothing. Anything.
And that's something that I really, really, really want to take into this new year, because I have found... so I looked at it. So I did a little over 6,000 minutes of Peloton in 2020. So I want to hit at least 12 in 2021, because I was averaging about 1,000 minutes a month. They have a new badge that's 15,000. I think that's going to be pretty dang hard. That averages out to about 53 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Now, there might be
split them up.
There might be one day I'm only doing 15 minutes, and then the next day I'm doing an hour and a half. Like, things are going to be all over the place. I would like to at least hit 12,000 minutes in 2021. But I was like thinking about the other things. Like, I have never like felt better just from a mental, like, honestly, working out has become like therapy for me. If I'm having a really high anxiety day, I shut off work for 30 minutes and I go ride the bike, or I go do a strength workout. I go do something because I know I'm going to feel better at the end of it. Now, I'm not telling you to go work out and that's going to make you, but like finding the things that like when you need that half an hour, I'm just going to go do this thing.
Yep.
Because I was mistaken for myself. So everyone is different. I was mistaken for myself that I would often think, if I just go watch a show for a half an hour, if I just go watch TV for 30 minutes, I just tune out, I'll feel better.
Yep.
That for me personally was actually not working.
Yeah.
I would get to the end of that half an hour, I wouldn't feel fulfilled. I'd feel like I just sat around. My body just didn't feel like, I just didn't gain anything from it.
Right.
Now, some people do. Some people are like, I just need 30 minutes to watch TV.
That could be your thing, yeah.
But it wasn't for me. I have found for myself, the only way my like mental state feels better is if I go spend a little bit of time working out. That is just what I have found.
Yeah.
I have to keep that up, because I cannot keep on that cycle anymore, because I've done that cycle for almost 8 years.
Yeah.
And a photo popped up of us from co-hosting a radio
2017, right?
Yeah, like a couple of days ago. And I saw that photo and I remember thinking like, I had so much fun that day, but I remember like looking at myself and I remember I felt so miserable in that photo. not because of anything going on, not because of
Yeah.
you, not because of Creighton, not because of anything. I was sincerely had a good day. But I remember I woke up that day and I felt like none of my clothes fit me. I felt like I was like really worn out. I remember thinking like, I just remember feeling like it was so much work to come just do this one thing.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to feel that way anymore because that is not how this is supposed to work.
Right. I know we said we'd mention it, but the other podcast that I co-host, Meathead Test Kitchen, we actually
Yes.
talk about that on this week's episode. Was released Monday. But just building healthy habits. So like habits are super easy to understand, but they're super hard to stop doing because there's a reward system involved. So like it's understanding like why all that stuff flies out the window come July. I think it's just like part of habits. But I think that one takeaway from 20, like I've been in and out of, like honestly, working out for me is the thing that I do too. And I feel lost if I don't. So like just mentally, I'm just kind of out of whack just because it's probably the endorphins at this point. But setting aside that time for myself every day, like, and doing something that's solely for me. I don't care about the aesthetics. I don't care about losing weight. I really don't care about any of that. But like the mental benefits of pushing myself until I think I'm going to break, but it's not breaking. Like I need that for myself to know that I can do this thing. And I'm probably going to be able to do that next thing if I just keep working at this thing. And then building on those smaller goals. Like that was one of my things for myself this year too, was to continue to be consistent, because I know that when things get back to whatever this new version of normal is going to be, it is super easy to let all the things that we already went through for the last, year and a half, however long it is, and going back to being able to go and do things, to let all the things that we learned about ourselves or all the things that we created for ourselves to do that we enjoy doing to kind of fall by the wayside. I guess like in a way it would be my challenge to everybody to whatever that thing is, whether it's coloring in a like literally coloring, or maybe you decided to learn how to play an instrument, or you learned how to cook bread, or whatever you did, whatever you learned this year that you really, really enjoy doing, continue doing that stuff, because
Find
it's
the
super
time.
important to do things for you. Anyone can do anything for 5 minutes.
Anything. And I know that sounds like, that's the thing is, so I'm so glad that you said what you did about not like, for me, like working out has not been about the aesthetics of it either. Like I still eat junk food. I still drink alcohol.
It's
like
about balance.
in fact, like the ride I took yesterday with my favorite instructor, he was like, I just want to point out that if y'all are still drinking alcohol, you're not going to probably drop as much weight as you want to. And I was like, that's fine. Like in my case, this is fine. But I understood why he was saying it, because he was talking to the people who have like gone into this year and they're like, I'm going to lose weight. He was saying like, if you want to do something for yourself, cutting alcohol out is a really, really quick way to like get yourself on
even
track.
just cutting back.
Yes. But so like I still eat junk food, I still eat out, I still like I get takeout more than I should. I drink alcohol, it's fine. So like I understand if I stopped all of that stuff and only ate like quinoa and like acai bowls every day, like I'd probably drop like 20 pounds. I don't care, because like that the weight that like I still carry is the stuff that I enjoy. But for me, something that I was really, really proud of this year is I have always had a really, really weak right wrist. I still do. I injured my wrist in high school. I was a cheerleader. I was tumbling. I hyperextended it enough times that like even today, like 15 years later, like, or however many years later, it's like I can't really bend my wrist back all that well.
Yeah.
So I can't like put a lot of weight on it, or at least I thought. So things like push-ups are really hard for me. The thing that I really enjoyed about Peloton is they taught me how to do a push-up effectively on my knees. So I'm not like having to do the full thing. Well, I took a yoga class probably a couple of weeks ago now. They get to the Chaturanga. Chaturanga is where you literally like are coming down out of a plank.
Basically a slow push-up.
Right, and you hold yourself above the ground, but don't put yourself on the ground until they tell you to release. I've never been able to do it.
Yeah.
I was able to do it for the first time.
Yeah, girl.
I was so excited about it, but like this is a move that's so easy for some people. They're just like, oh, what the heck? Like I'm just doing this. I have never been able to do that because my wrist has never been strong enough. Like,
Yeah.
I've always dropped out of it. I was able to finally do it. And, like, seeing
it's the
that,
small wins that, like, make up the bigger picture and all that. Like, I keep saying this, and, like, people are probably going to start getting annoyed, but, like, you have to have snowflakes in order to build a snowman. And, like,
love that.
those small wins and the small things that you're doing to build on, like, the healthier habits or whatever it is that you're doing for yourself, like, that stuff will eventually make your snowman if you just keep doing it. So, like, I guess I kind of want that to be it doesn't have to be, like, for this week, but maybe, like, throughout the year. Like, that's my challenge to everyone listening to this podcast. Like, keep your snowflakes, build your snowballs, create your snowman. Like, keep doing that stuff because it's for you. And, like, that stuff is super important. Even if it's 10 minutes in your day. If you have to wake up 10 minutes earlier to do that thing for yourself, do it, because I think it's so worth it. Like, don't lose yourself once things start going back to kind of normal.
And let's hold each other accountable to this, because here's the thing. I have no intention on this podcast stopping anytime soon. So, like, we'll still be talking about this come next August, September. Check in. Let's talk about it next August, September. I will tell you, because I guarantee you it's going to be really hard for me, because my body is used to every year around August, like, shit hits the fan. I'd really like to not have that be a thing any longer. So let's talk about it. Let's check in August, September and see how we're all doing, because that's the thing is, like, you know, there are things that we did in 2020 that we will, in a perfect world, say, I'd love to have that keep going, and it won't.
Here's a thing, too. Like, motivation, I think, sometimes has a play in that. And we've talked about motivation and discipline in terms of sports, but it also applies just, like, to your daily, like, your life. Like, you can be motivated as shit at the beginning of the year on January 1, but where are you when that motivation isn't there anymore? Because motivation is fleeting. At some point, discipline has to take over. And the only way discipline takes over is if you keep doing things and it's just what you do.
And, you know, I'm going to tell you, it's super hard. Like,
it is.
You know, there's a reason. And let's just tie this all back to football and sports and all sports for just a second. But I'm going to speak about football for just a moment. So in a normal year, football does get breaks. So when the season is over, they typically get, depending on, you know, the bowl game situation, they get a couple of weeks to a month off, and then they get ready into winter conditioning. Winter conditioning is usually a little bit lighter. Then they get ready for spring football. When spring football ends, they usually have between 2 weeks to a month, depending, to go home, relax, rest.
Yes.
They then have summer conditioning. Summer conditioning is good, but it's not football shape. There's a difference between being practice ready and game ready. There are periods of time in a year where a football team is practice ready. They're not game ready. So here's the thing. Here's how and so when we talk about, like, Nebraska and being exhausted at the end of the season, whether you agreed with it or not, they were in, like, basically game ready mode for 2 months before they even knew if a season would happen. That is a lot on yourself. We do not all need to be game ready January 1st through December 31st. We are not game ready 365 days this year. We need to be practice ready some days.
Yes.
There's going to be periods of this year where it's like, this month, I'm just practice ready. But you know what? I'm still dedicated to showing up and at least doing the things that I love to do and staying practice ready.
Yes,
because,
girl.
Well, then when I want to be game ready, it's a lot easier for me to get there.
Yes.
We don't have to go from 0 to 100 every time, but we also don't have to be at 100 all the time. Like, you can be at 50.
Sometimes it's going to be raindrops in your bucket. Sometimes it's going to be a whole gallon of water.
Yeah.
Just keep filling that bucket.
Just keep going for it. I mean, that's the thing is, like, I think sometimes with goals, resolutions, intentions, everything else, we go all in so fast. And it's like, I have to be game ready all the time. You know what happens when you're game ready for 2 months before you need to be? You get exhausted, and then
you burn out.
You don't want to keep going.
Exactly. Because it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. If it was a football team, a volleyball team, all of them, they would be ready all year long. They would never get out of game ready mode. They would be ready all the time. But how many NFL players, for instance, do we see that the second their season is done, they're like, I am taking a month and I am doing nothing but
eating pizza.
Now I'm going to still work out. Like, I'm still going to go do my training, but I'm going to, like, I'm going to
hard.
Right. I'm going to like take a little bit of a break because my body needs it. My mind needs it. But the thing is they don't let go of everything.
Right.
Because then when they get ready to get back into it, they're still conditioned for it. It's just not game ready condition.
Exactly.
I think that's the thing that I'm starting to like realize for myself is there are seasons in a year. We are not always in game season. So let's find what works for us, but let's stop falling back to zero. Because even if we're living at 20% or 50%, it's a whole heck of a lot closer to that 100%
If you're doing
when you need
it at 30, if you're doing 30 minutes of that thing you love every day, and some days you only do 5, I'm going to repeat again. Something is better than nothing. You're still making time for you. And like mentally, that's going to be like the best thing that you can do for yourself. Because when shit gets hard, because it always will, at some point, you have those things to fall back on. It's like, it's building a healthy habit for yourself, like whatever that is. You know, fried an egg perfectly, cool.
I mean, find the
doing it
things.
for a couple times a week, whatever it is. I love that. Like I'm making a highlight out of that, like game ready versus practice ready.
They're two different things, and it's really easy for those of us. And this is actually, I will stop going on about Peloton for now, but that is actually one of the things I love about Peloton. So, I grew up, in my opinion, as an athlete, but like I don't think considered myself like a real true athlete, and I don't know why. Like I don't know why I was. I swam, I played volleyball, I competitively cheered. Like I mean, everything I did made me an athlete. But like, there's this one instructor. Her name is Tunde. She lost 70 pounds. Is now an instructor. She's incredible. Like Tunde is like awesome.
Yeah.
She is often the one who says, "Remember, you're an athlete. You are an athlete, so you need to treat yourself like an athlete." And I love that she reminds me of that, because as somebody who's just so badly wanted to be an athlete my whole life, like in what I felt like, her constantly reminding me, care for yourself because you are an athlete. Treat yourself like one. I'm like, yes, okay. So when I'm done, I'll go get some protein. I'll go do these things for myself because you're reminding me of this. And so whatever it is that you're doing, even if you feel like I'm not an expert in it, it doesn't matter. Treat yourself like that thing. Manifest it to a degree. Like put that on your shoulders and say, like, I am this thing, even if I'm not 100% of it every single day.
Yes.
We're not all going to be LeBron James.
Right.
We're not going to be LeBron James of whatever it is that you like to do.
Yeah.
But LeBron James isn't the only one playing basketball.
Exactly. Exactly. That's like one thing I had to teach myself. Like I know that it's super easy, like when you want to do something to change it for the better, to like go full bore 100% in. But like for me, in terms of like when I started working out consistently, like it's been a couple years now, but like sometimes you do have to dial it back. Like that is also a form of self-care, like resting, like take a freaking bath, like do 10 minutes of yoga instead, and then take a bath. 'Cause like, it's all self-care, whatever that self-care looks like just that little bit of time here, there, whatever, to take and dial it back, honestly is going to set you up even further for more success down the long run too. Like,
and it's okay to rest. It's okay. Like,
yes.
I think that's the thing. Like, so with like the blog that I want to keep up, for instance, maybe it would be better for me if I said, hey, I'm going to write twice a week and do all this stuff. But to be honest with you, I already know if I do that, it's going to put restrictions on me where I'm going to very quickly start to resent it, because I'm going to say, like, I don't have time for that. I'm not feeling it today. I don't have a topic to talk about. So I'm just going to kind of let it, like, I am going to hold myself accountable to the fact that, like, I don't want to just abandon it. I don't want to do what I did last year and only write once and never come back. But I also don't want to set too many parameters where I basically set myself up that if I'm not meeting a certain thing, I'm suddenly now failing at it.
Right.
I just want to do whatever is right for me. And, I'm going to hopefully fall into a rhythm with it. I already have some ideas, things I want to talk about. But I even said this in my first post of this year. I think my biggest downfall is that I often try too hard. I try too hard to project something that I want people to think about me, what I want them to, take away, or how I want people to perceive me. And, honestly, it's not that deep. It's just, so if you're somebody who's like, the thing I like to do is take my dog for a walk. I enjoy 20 minutes a day of taking my dog for a walk. You know what? There's going to be a day that it's raining or it's going to be really terrible outside, or you know what? You're just going to have a headache and you're not going to feel it. And you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow you can go on that walk.
Exactly.
Like, we just kind of have to stop.
As long as tomorrow, like, here's the one thing that I like to tell people too, like, when you're creating these habits, as long as tomorrow isn't always tomorrow. Like, and what I mean by that is like letting multiple days be like, I ate like crap today. I'll do it tomorrow. And then eating like crap tomorrow and then saying tomorrow and keep saying tomorrow because tomorrow becomes a year.
Absolutely.
And then you're like, dang it. I did what I said I didn't want to do. Holding yourself accountable in that way, like, is also equally important. Balance is like, that's all I have to say. Like, yeah. Balance is like super key. Like, don't overdo it, but don't underdo it. But don't,
honestly, I'm going to just say this, and I think some of you might agree with this. And really quick, before I add this, because I'm projecting onto a lot of you, but you can email us at mindyourownpodcast@hailvarsity.com and let us know what you think. Share your intentions for the year. Share if you agree with what we're saying or not. Again, that's mindyourownpodcast@hailvarsity.com. Because the one thing that, like, I think all of us can probably learn from this year, we love sports. Most people do. We love sports. We love watching sports. Maybe we like a certain thing. I think sometimes we tie too much of our identity into sports to the point that we let it ruin our day. We let it completely change how we function. If our team loses, wins, whatever, it changes the course of our day and beyond. It is totally cool to be a passionate fan. It is totally cool. Like, I don't think that you should, like, suddenly not be a fan. I'm not telling you to stop that. But I do think in 2021 and beyond, if this year has shown us anything, maybe it's okay to sometimes just take a step back, take a little bit of a break from it, because you don't need to have your day ruined. You don't need to get yourself completely off track about something that you can't control. That is something that, I'd like to do more of. It's just kind of like, I've often told people when they're like, well, it doesn't seem like you care about how Nebraska does. Well, I'm not a fan.
Right.
I cover the team. Now, it is easier when Nebraska wins because people are generally happier.
Right.
But I care more about the people than I do about the outcome of the game. Yeah. I just think for a lot of us, maybe 2020 has shown us, let's just enjoy what we have when we have it, and just appreciate it, even if what you're watching frustrates the heck out of you. There's only so much we can control. And in most of our cases, there's nothing we can control about it.
Right.
So let's just kind of roll with it a little bit more.
Yeah.
As much as we can. Now, like I said, you can still yell at the TV and get passionate and stuff, but when it's all said and done, go walk the dog. Yeah. Go do the thing. Go make some bread. Go do the thing that makes you happy. Don't lose
Fry
those things.
Fry your perfect egg.
Don't lose those things just because a team doesn't accomplish the thing that you want them to.
Exactly.
They don't run your life.
They don't.
Well, and if they do, they shouldn't. Unless you're actively the head coach of that team, then they do run your life.
Yes, they do.
But, well, first episode of the new year. I'm really looking forward to, we started this podcast, our first episode was in August. I'm really looking forward to seeing a full calendar year of this from January until the end of December. So I appreciate something, by the way, that a lot of you have told us in emails is that this podcast has become, weekly, listening, which honestly shocks me because I'm always like, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you want to do something that would mean a great deal, please share this podcast with somebody that you think would like it. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Leaving us a rating is great. If you would not mind taking a moment to actually write a review, that would go really, really far. But only if they're 5 stars, because I'm incredibly fragile. I'm just kidding. Remember how we said that I'm really bad at taking I'm if you leave us a positive review, I will deflect and be like, oh no, you're amazing. But if you leave me a negative one, I will never recover from it. No, but we do appreciate it. You've You make our day when you email us.
Yeah.
Which again is mindyourownpodcast@hillvarsity.com. You make our day when you tweet at us, because I'm at Erin Sorensen. She's at Sasha72. We really just, I think that's been the greatest thing about this podcast is the conversation that has come from it. So let's just not stop that.
Yeah. Let's keep it going.
Let's just commit to that in the new year, an intention of not losing the conversation.
100%.
And remember, you only have to be practice ready. We don't always have to be game ready. And we'll be, this is the most lame thing I will ever say, but we'll all be champions together, 2021. Anyway.
We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
A Hurrdat Media Production.